The UK is a wonderful place. No, it really is. I'm not being facetious. The UK has many wonderful things about it, including the culture, the music, especially the humor, the diversity. And going back to the humor, I think it's so unique. I think the ability to take the piss out of each other and ourselves is quite unique. And it just has a feeling of openness. You can express yourself openly, be yourself. There's so much to see and do. But why are people so miserable? I think this comes down to the fact that people like a good whinge. And yes, sometimes it's good to moan about things, moan about how things are, but wouldn't it be wonderful if things were better, if the healthcare was better, if the transport system was better? And yes, this is something that we deserve. This is something that can change. So, especially over the last decade, the government has really crippled the country, and many people are struggling, especially if you're not incredibly wealthy and rich. You're having to make more cuts in things that you're buying. You're having to look at your budget and having to make compromises all over the place. So the standard of living has really decreased. In a recent study, the UK was voted the second most miserable place in the world. Do you think this is true? I was quite shocked to hear that it's the second most miserable country. So yes, I assumed it would be quite miserable. But part of this is complaining about how bad the weather is, for example. And I think the weather for most of the year is terrible. I think the people that do enjoy this type of weather, I think good for you. It takes some getting used to, and you have to adapt to it. So having lots of different types of clothes, carrying an umbrella with you, it does limit your lifestyle in terms of having an outdoor lifestyle. Now, yes, you can have an outdoor lifestyle. You just have to be more prepared. You have to accept that the weather's going to be gloomy. You're going to have to wear a raincoat, take an umbrella, but you can still enjoy it. But I think what really gets to people is when the price of everything has increased and your salary hasn't increased. And you just get this extra feeling that things are going downhill. If we also look at the fact that 60 to 70% of food eaten in the UK is extra processed, with over half of Brits eating it daily, reported feeling distressed compared to 18% who rarely or never do. I think this is a huge factor. Especially in London, there are a plethora of chicken shops everywhere you go. And I think that the convenience of these shops, is appealing, especially when you are stressed from work, you're tired, you're fatigued, you don't have the energy to cook a healthy meal. And also the price, there is relatively cheap compared to the bigger chain fast food shops. So eating this really bad food, it inevitably catches up with you, and you don't really have that energy, because when you're eating this food, you're feeling good initially. And also when you go into supermarkets, you see all the specials on all this junk food, all the sweets, all the mini cakes, all the Jaffa cakes. So, I'm also guilty of that as well. I can't resist a good offer, especially when you see it straight away when you go into the supermarket. Once you start eating healthier, you start feeling better. You start having more energy to deal with the negativity. But that's not the only reason. I think it's a culture of being isolated, which is quite ironic when you think about the amount of diversity in the UK. When people stick to their own groups, they often see others as randoms. So smiling at someone, saying good morning, initiating a conversation, it may seem as being very strange, very weird. It's like, why are you talking to me? Why are you saying hello to me? but we lose that connection that this is another human being. We are all sharing the same existence together. So that's the thing that I've noticed, especially when you go further up north. People are much more open and talk to each other and smile a lot more, even though the weather is worse further north you go. And yes, it doesn't cost anything to say hello. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. But does it? Does it cost something? It may cost something to people who are trying to reserve their energy or are just beat down with the amount of stress that they have or the amount of expectations they feel on themselves. It may be the fact that they want to have a bigger house or a bigger car, or to be shown that they've progressed in life to friends, family, the world. But is this really necessary? When people get together as a community, I think it becomes less about what you have in comparison to the other person, but it's more enjoying each other's company. And I think simple acts like genuinely being friendly to another person goes a long way. But it's deep rooted in society, even with the greeting of all right. You almost feel ashamed to say that I'm feeling wonderful, I'm feeling good. If you went to on holiday or you went somewhere and someone asks you, how was it? You say, yeah, it's quite good. So rather than saying it was amazing, you are downplaying your experience because you don't want the other person to feel bad because their existence is miserable. So I think really celebrating life, celebrating the opportunities that we have, because the UK is a great place. There's so many wonderful things to do, especially when it comes to art and theatre and expressing yourself. So I don't think everyone is miserable, but it's the conditions that make you feel miserable. Some of these conditions is financial. So 30 years ago, you could work hard, save up your money, buy a house and live comfortably. But now, with everything so expensive, you're having to really struggle, make cuts. So you really feel that financial strain, and it leads to a lot of worry, a lot of depression, a lot of isolation, because you don't feel open to talk about this. And I feel that there are a lot of depressed people suffering with anxiety or even social anxiety because of that disconnect, that it's okay to share with other people. Yes, I'm struggling. Other people are maybe struggling as well. And if you look at the way the country's been run in terms of public services, you get that impression that they've just been sucked dry. Having to wait for longer periods to be seen by a doctor on the NHS, the transport system, having people begging on the tube, for example. Now, when I come to the tube, if we think about the UK culture, it's wonderful, but we have a culture of not making eye contact with each other, which is a little bit strange. It's almost like you don't want to offend the other person, or you're scared to initiate a conversation by making eye contact, which is so strange because we are living in such cramped situations. We're so cramped on public transport. Yet there's such an isolation, which I feel that it just takes one spark to initiate things and to feel like, it's okay. We are in this boat together to try to improve things. So in terms of housing, homelessness, I feel is increasing, and you see this a lot more often. Political, social division, I think the gaps are widening. There's always been a feeling of dog eat dog. So when you're in the workplace, people are positioning themselves to get more money, and that's natural around the world. That's office politics. But I think it's a level of care. For example, if someone is off sick, rather than feeling genuinely concerned for that individual, people are more concerned about the workload it would cost, the workload that has increased on themselves. So people are very much individualistic, which can be a good thing in terms of expressing yourself, but can be a negative thing in terms of genuinely caring for another person and not worrying about if that person is going to get more than you are, because there's more than enough. There's more than enough money, there's more than enough opportunities there for people. If you want to start a business, if you want to change your career, if you want to advance in your current career, there are opportunities there. You're able to raise a family, you're able to buy a house. This is something which needs to be more accessible for people, and for people to really think this is something achievable. Yes, the weather does make a big impact. If it is really miserable and you cannot go out and you're feeling stuck, but there are lots of gyms, there are health centers that you can go to, you can do a class, you can go and play some badminton, you can choose a group. There are lots of meetup groups, so you can connect with like-minded people. So I don't think it's the fact that people are inherently miserable, but these things add up. It costs money to go and play badminton or go to play basketball. And when the cost of your rent or your mortgage has increased and your food bill has gone up and your heating bill has gone up, so now you have to think, I can't afford to go and do those things. And then it stops your ability to also save for a rainy day. So you have that stress. If your washing machine breaks down and it's out of warranty, what are you going to do? You may have to take out another loan, and that will cause more stress. So this is what I mean by having a good quality of life. If you cannot change things like the weather and having a fantastic outdoor lifestyle, it's having some disposable income. And that disposable income, I think, is also essential because it allows you to pursue your hobbies, which leads to a greater sense of mental well-being, which then makes you more productive. And you feel like talking to people. You feel like smiling at someone if someone is walking past you, because you feel like you have enough. When you have this constant stress of whatever you're doing is never enough, you've got to have more and more and more. At what point do you say that's enough? And sometimes you can't, because of the way things are, because things are incredibly expensive. So moving forward, hopefully this level of discontent and apathy can start to improve as the country starts to improve, hopefully, and more money is reinvested back into the country. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about Britain? Are Brits miserable? Why do you think they are miserable?